and welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I love you. I love you. So you see the title today. We are about to find out if the iPhone is illegal. Tell me why I was on TikTok and I seen that they are being sued. They are being called a monopoly. They are playing us all. Okay, so let's watch this video because maybe he'll explain it in depth. We're going to learn something today. Let's see.
So if I build a new lens and my lens only works with my camera, then that's vertical integration. Or if I build new headphones and my headphones only work with my cable, that's vertical integration. Now, if I build a new smartwatch and my smartwatch only works with my smartphone, be careful, that might be illegal. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but let's talk about it. So this is a developing story and will continue to develop for years, but I feel like it all comes down to something that I've at least noticed in talking to all these big companies, all these very public, multi-billion-dollar companies. They always have two reasons for any public-facing statement that they make. There's the reason for the public, and then there's the real reason. So there was just some news this past week of the US Department of Justice suing Apple, saying that they are an illegal monopoly in the United States, the iPhone specifically. Now, whenever there's legal proceedings, obviously things get very complicated, and I won't even pretend to be diving into this at a super deep level, but this is also interesting to me because of all the stuff with the things that we talk about every day with just smartphones and gadgets. And of course, this is a pretty US specific thing. Like obviously they're being sued by the US, but also their dominance. Apple, the iPhone is the most popular in the US. So I think these are some numbers we should keep in mind. In the US, the iPhone is at like 60% market share, and it's even way higher, up near 90% with young people. Like it is ridiculously dominant. Yeah. But worldwide, the iPhone is at about a 25% market share. So the iPhone is specifically trending towards a monopoly in the United States. So here's where it gets really interesting. I would like to live in this analogy for this video, which is you've heard about people describing Apple's ecosystem as a walled garden before. This could not be more true, right? There's this really, really nice, beautiful, luscious garden, and in the middle of that garden is the iPhone. And it has these really tall, thick walls all the way around it. So in an ideal world, right, you are just picking between different options for a product based on its merits, based on its features. So you just look at the whole lineup and you go, yeah, I like this one the best. And that's how you make your choice, right? Sick. But with this one, the claim is Apple is making it really, really difficult once you've chosen theirs to ever switch to anything else. So with this analogy again, it's really the walls of the garden
this video's exciting.
that we have the issue with. So I'll do two examples. So take the Apple Watch, right? This is one of the examples in the Department of Justice's 88-page PDF that they've submitted. The iPhone and the Apple Watch work perfectly well together and only together.
Right.
It's a feature, it's by design, that's how they are. So two parts of that are sketchy. One is the Apple Watch works really well with the iPhone in a way that no other smartwatch can. And two, the Apple Watch does not work with any other smartphone. So look, I don't think it's a surprise that when Apple built a watch, they gave it all kinds of integrations with the iPhone so you can see them working perfectly together. You can see and dismiss your notifications, you can reply to messages, track your fitness, you can even use it as a shutter for your iPhone's camera. All these features that they just plug right into the iPhone. They work great. And I think that's even what Apple would tell people. They would agree, like this is how we made it so that they work amazingly well together. This is vertical integration. It's awesome. But there's also the real reason. Because the truth is now, if you try to use any other smartwatch with the iPhone, you just don't get nearly as many of those useful features from being super well integrated. If you try to use like a Garmin smartwatch, for example, you don't get the viewfinder for the camera. You don't get the fitness tracking through Apple Fitness. You don't get quick replies. You don't get even image previews for your text messages. You don't even get to choose which apps show you notifications. It's just all or nothing. So if you choose an iPhone, then next when you're looking for a smartwatch to buy, there's kind of only really one good full-fledged option, which is the Apple Watch. This is also true, by the way, to various degrees with AirPods and AirTags and various other things in Apple's ecosystem, because they all are great when you have an iPhone and work super well with it, but work horribly or not at all when you don't.
Not at
So
all.
that is part of that's the walls around the ecosystem that make it really hard to leave. Because if you now want to switch from the iPhone to the Android phone, you're not just switching phones. You have to now get a new phone and a new watch and new headphones and a new tracker and all this stuff, because they
Yep.
all worked so well with the iPhone and so horribly with anything else.
Right.
So that is a real barrier to people leaving this ecosystem once they get into it. So
Exactly.
another example is the whole
too much work
blue bubbles
and
and
expensive.
green bubbles thing that they do. I've already made an
my
entire
God.
video about this dynamic. If you haven't already seen it, I'll leave a link with a like button below if you want to watch it.
Can I just say that I am an Android user? I do not have an iPhone. So I just love hearing this perspective. I'm going to be quiet.
But basically today, when iPhones message other iPhones, they have tons of features and typing indicators and high-res media, and those are blue bubbles. And when they message Android phones, it falls back to SMS, which is slow, low-res, unencrypted trash. That is green bubbles. And Apple just refuses to make iMessage work on Android. The Department of Justice actually literally references a video of Tim Cook on stage at a conference where he says this.
It's tough, not to make it personal, but I can't send my mom certain videos, or she can't send me certain videos. And so we leave her
Buy
out of-
your mom an iPhone.
All right.
And this is so poetic just because, you know, obviously he's got this smile of like, you guys all know it's true. But also it goes back to what I said at the beginning, which is with any of these public-facing decisions, there's the answer that they give the public, and then there's the real reason. You know, originally iMessage was built back in the days where text messages were basically paid per text. Like every SMS cost money, hence the green. So iMessage would work over the internet and be unlimited, and it would offer way more features. And they'd build onto it over time, adding encryption and reactions and typing indicators, all this stuff. And Apple people and Apple themselves would probably all agree, like, it's just a thing that Apple built that's way better than SMS. Like, it's not their fault SMS sucks. They just made a better thing. So yeah, of course, yeah, they're going to build their own version of a thing, and it's not illegal to not also develop it for Android. They just made their own thing for the iPhone. But also, Tim Cook's quote, just buy your mom an iPhone, is the other equally valid point. It's the real reason. There are plenty of internal emails that have surfaced over time with Apple executives openly talking about how giving iMessage to Android would make it easier for people to switch to Android from the iPhone. iMessage is clearly one of the walls of the ecosystem, and it's probably one of the biggest, thickest walls. Like, ask any young person in the US today why they use an iPhone.
Because
I
everybody
think a
else
lot of
has
them would
it,
probably
and
tell
it's
you
easier.
something to do with iMessage. So, is this stuff that they're doing illegal, I guess is the question. Or maybe even another way to phrase it is Apple making other products worse, or are they making their own products really good and then not letting other things outside the ecosystem have access to those things? It's kind of both, honestly. But the thing is, they're not the only ones doing a lot of this stuff. They are just the ones that happen to be in this pseudo-monopoly position right now. Like the Pixel Watch, for example, does not work at all with the iPhone. It just works perfectly with Android phones. But is anybody that mad about that? You know, RCS is announced to be coming to the iPhone at some point in 2024, but I can almost guarantee it'll probably still be green bubbles. It will probably be the absolute bare minimum of supporting RCS, and they will probably still be delineating very clearly between iPhone to iPhone iMessage and iPhone to Android something else. And there's even more to this lawsuit, like Apple Pay is another one, how no other services can use the NFC chip on the iPhone. Super apps is another one. Like if you want to look at all this stuff, I will link the best stuff I can find down below. So my take is Apple is technically, yeah, guilty of all of these things. They're doing all this stuff. But in the walled garden analogy, it's like they have built up a really, really nice garden. And Apple would say like, look, our garden, it's so green and luscious and beautiful. They've built the most beautiful garden with the most people in it,
Yep.
but they've also built up the biggest walls around that garden. And so Apple would love to say, look, everyone's chosen our garden and they're all staying in our garden. That's how great it is. But even if you saw another greener, softer, better garden somewhere else, the walls to escaping to getting to that are just way too high.
Oh
So
my
it's less
God, the way
that
he
each
explained that,
individual thing
perfect.
that they're doing with the products working well together is illegal, and it's more that they feel like they have to do something about this one company having so much power and control in smartphones, which is here it's essentially a commodity. It's just like a thing that everybody has. So I want to leave
Right.
you with this. You remember at the beginning when I talked about how Apple's ridiculously dominant in the US and these crazy numbers, like 90% of young people? The crazy thing is they're super, super popular here, but as I mentioned, they are not a monopoly anywhere else. And why? Why is that true? How are they so popular here and they're doing all the same stuff in other places, but they're not a monopoly in other places? And so I think of China, for example. China is another huge smartphone market where WeChat is kind of like this super app. It's a huge thing. Like it's messaging, it's payments, it's also calling a taxi and also paying your bills and ordering food, groceries. Like WeChat is everything. So just as long as your phone has WeChat, then the rest is kind of doesn't really matter. It's up to you. And so in China, there's this incredibly vibrant, innovative landscape of all these smartphone manufacturers competing like crazy, like Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and iPhone is in there too, but they're all just competing ruthlessly with hardware features and with other stuff to try to get your attention to maybe pick their phone. Because it's just what you're into. They all have WeChat. So in a market like that, people will buy your phone based on if it's actually better or not. Meaning there's lots of gardens and very few walls around those gardens. That's what a good competitive landscape looks like. Now, what would be maybe illegal or a wrong thing to do is if WeChat or the makers of WeChat, if Tencent made a phone and then they gave their phone special access to certain parts of WeChat that suddenly no other phone could get, then monopoly. So this
Right.
lawsuit and all this legal versus illegal stuff, it's mainly just a way to try to poke some holes and get closer to that level of lower walls and more competition that makes everybody better. Then we're actually competing on innovation again. But it's something that will be evolving for a long time over time, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And speaking of things that might be illegal, shout out to Dbrand for sponsoring this video. So you might have heard about, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about their grip case by now. So I got their latest Hydro Dip cases here, and I gotta say, the name matches it perfectly. You know, these days a lot of phone cases are just kind of boring plastic shells, but with Dbrand, they're kind of playing with some stuff, and these are some crazy colorways and these trippy hydro dipped patterns. Plus with the Gold Rush one, if you catch it under the right light, you'll notice a
That one
little
is so
low-key
nice.
metallic effect under this matte finish, which is sick. Now, in addition to the impact protection that you expect from a premium case, perfect, grip cases also have what I would consider attention to detail. So that's two things. First of all, these buttons, they're just really clicky. They're nice. They're probably better than the actual phone's buttons. But also in general, like we've all eventually dropped a phone, whether it's like out of a car or on your face while watching a YouTube video. It happens. Ideally, this case prevents it
It does
because
happen.
it's in the name. It's the grip case. This texture is pretty nice at that. So it's hopefully going to prevent that sort of drop stuff. But in the case you do drop it, then yeah, should be fine. It's good. So yeah, if you're a case person, I would say at least get yourself a nice grip case. I'll leave a link below. But that's it. Thanks for watching this video, and let me know what you think.
I feel like that video was very informative. I did very much so see this on TikTok that they were being sued. As an Android user, I always feel like discriminated against. Anytime I text somebody and they see that green bubble, here goes the shade. For some reason, people think I'm less fortunate because I have an Android, not an iPhone. It's a choice, it's a preference. I just really love my Android. I don't want to deal with the whole iCloud and iThis, and I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to feel like I'm stuck in this bubble of needing all these Apple products. I like it over here. And I just would love if people would let me like it over here and not judge me for my preference. But, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. And I love you. Bye.